Hello, this is Jay Mitchell, and we're back with another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, where we look at the post-libertarian censored subreddit. Let's get right into it. CIA, MKUltra, and the cover-up of U.S. germ warfare in the Korean War from 2021 from Counterpunch.org by Harumph. And I said, the U.S. is still using germ warfare as well. They just call it gain-of-function research now. And you can see that, how they tried to create COVID in the lab, and how that got that out of the lab, and how, yeah, that turned out. So yeah, the U.S. is definitely still using biological warfare, and it's probably gonna still keep using it in the future. I would say, even after all the COVID shit happened, because they're just going right back to it. It's nothing really changes when it comes to the U.S. government. They always justify the same bullshit. They always justify regardless of what happens. Justice Kennedy ignores his conflict of interest and abortion ban case from FloridaBulldog.org by Ninja Lover, and I commented, politicians, judges, and other government workers almost always have conflicts of interest. It's probably why we should get rid of them, because, people are always going to be conflicted, and they always will have a private life. They're always being concerned about their own interest first and foremost. That's why I think we should get rid of all of them and just let the people decide what they want instead of having the politicians and other government workers decide for them. Obsessed by Motherfucking Inc., and that's a meme of from the SpongeBob movie. It's the amount corporations talk about Pride Month, and it's Dennis, about SpongeBob and Patrick, and then the big scuba guy comes in. The amount folks talk about Pride Month, and the thing is that I would say, yeah, I like the top comment. Morgan Freeman, Biblix88, Morgan Freeman, Black History Monkeys, Racism Alive. And I would say, yeah, so I would say definitely, people support black, LGBTQ, and all the other minorities, but, they don't like getting it shoved down their throats constantly, and I think that's what you kind of see these days. So I agree with the comment, yeah. 31 photos from Tiananmen Square protests that China has tried to erase from history from BusinessInsider.com by Skull Whisperer. And, yeah, I would say that's good that you're exposing that. It was also the killdozer yesterday, and I think that's good that people need to stand up against tyranny and stand up for themselves. And I think that this was another good example of that. How the guy was willing to stand in front of the tanks, and despite they probably would have run him over, but that's you gotta stand up for yourself. Youth pastor accused of filming girls at shower at SC Church, not a trans person or a drag queen from Cleveland19.com by Chi-Town20. And of course, that's them trying to push their narrative about all the right wing people are predators, but none of the left wing people are, because it's trying to push a narrative. It's what Reddit kind of is, just kind of push narratives. And yeah, I've acknowledged this before, but there are bad people on all sides of the political spectrum. It's important to remember that, because and it's not. You should remember that bad actors are all sides of the political spectrum, and just not using them to try and push narratives. If that people trying to use them to push narratives these days, and that's something that's important to remember. Transgender adults in Florida blindsided that new law also limits their access to healthcare from APnews.com by Donald Key. And I would say, yeah, that's a bit too far, and yes, but I'd say that's too far, and you should definitely let over 18 get everything. I'll say over 18, and you should be able to do whatever you want. Ever want to your own body. We have the Democrats' most popular TV personality, Maddow, and one of the most popular Congress members, Jamie Raskin, were the keynote speakers and honorees of a conference sponsored by arms dealers Lockheed. And the opposite surprising, this simply is the Democratic Party. From Glenn Greenwald on Twitter, and that was him quoting Max Blumenthal. And I said, don't forget it when it's the Republicans have the drone and they're launching all the bombs, and then the Democrats have the same thing, but they have the Pride flag and the BLM flag on theirs. So don't forget that they all have the same goals, and they really are just the uniparty. Yeah. Then we have all this was true. Fear is government's greatest favorite weapon, and the sheep follow, from a tweet from Kevin Sorbo, and that was yeah, he tweeted the board. It says 1960s oil gone in 10 years, 1970s another ice age in 10 years, 1980s acid rain will destroy all crops in 10 years, 1990s the ozone layer will be gone in 10 years, 2000 ice caps will be gone in 10 years. None happened, but all result in more taxes. Kevin Sorbo's a bit more on the right for me, but I definitely think it's important to note that all these narratives are kind of true, and they did try and push all of them, and they're still trying to push them today, and that's important to remember. That they're always trying to push these narratives to use fear to control you, and that's important for people to always realize, I would say. The AI firm that conducted state surveillance of your social media posts from Hurumph, and that's an archive link to Telegraph. And yeah, it's just yeah. You should definitely. There's always state surveillance these days. Probably a lot of private surveillance as well. So you're nothing's in private anymore. It's important to remember that, I would say. EU's Digital Services Act threatens Americans' free speech from Reason.com, and that's definitely dangerous, I would say. The EU is definitely more on the digital restrictive side than the US even is, and the US is really getting there as well. So I think we'll definitely see a censorship industrial complex, as this article mentions, pop up sooner rather than later. I would argue you could easily argue with the Twitter fires that's already there, but it's just not as formalized yet. But I definitely think it's going to start to get more and more formalized as the years go on. If their disinformation governance board that said, "Oh, we stopped that," but they didn't really stop it. They just did that because the people reacted to it negatively. But they're doing it under the table, I would say. They're doing it under the table. Soon they only have to do that because people are just justify it because it's all bullshit. That's the thing. CDC report recognizes police perpetrated killing as major cause of violent death, from truthout.org by Muad'Dib. And yeah, I'd agree with that. That is, police do kill a lot of innocent people. I think that's a major cause of death. I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that. Unlocking the potential of private school choice, avoiding and overcoming obstacles to successful implementation, by Ruin My Circle Jerk from the Manhattan Institute. Of course, they're always trying to push school choice. I definitely think that is correct, though. And then they have study finds the teacher licensing increase costs without increasing quality. Another one by Ruin My Circle Jerk, and I think that is good. School choice is good. I think we need to let people choose whatever they want to, as long as the NAP isn't being violated. So that's my thoughts there. Virginia major charged after allegedly molesting his 9-year-old relative on a cruise, from FBI, from MSN.com. And that's another one by Chi-Town. And I think, this is them trying to push the narrative that all of the, the right are pedophiles, because, typically the military is more right-wing. And I think that's important to remember. Of course, it's from the Art Plus Knowledge Drag Queen subreddit, so that's important to remember. Yeah. Trader made $7.5 million on suspiciously timed debt-limited deal trade, from Business Insider.com by Ninja Lover. Of course, they all are corrupt, and I like the top comments from Zealous Steel Teach 141. Suspiciously timed. Like Carlin said, it's a small club, and we in it. They can get away with pretty much anything, and there's nothing we can really do to hold them accountable, sadly. There's democracy, but trust me, the Uniparty is really, it's pretty much the same thing. If it wasn't him, it would be just someone else with a different letter next to their name. And that's the sad, sad truth. They really tell themselves, don't they? From Kage blah blah blah. And that is A tweet from Right Wing Watch. Misogynistic Christian fascist incel Nick Fuentes says that once he turns 30, he'll probably find himself a 16-year-old child bride. Right when the milk is good, I want to start drinking that milk. So, yeah, that's just Nick Fuentes trying to typically do his outrage stuff, and yeah, and that's the Twitter falling for it. So, yeah, good for them, I guess. Then we have nearly a third of Gen Z favors the government installing surveillance cameras in homes from Ninja Lover, and that's from Caldo.org. And yeah, I definitely think that, soon we'll have cameras in our homes all the time and they'll be able to see everything we do. And yeah, it kind of scares me. Uh, and when Slayer 911 commented, that's cute. Gen Z trust government apparently not old enough to know better yet. I said a lot of Gen Z hates government when it has the wrong lyrics, but loves when it has the lyric they want it to. I think that's important to remember. They'll defend the police, but then if the Democrats say something like this, they'll say, "Oh, we need to put all the cameras in the homes." Burning hate, denial, anger, and plea bargaining from the devil's advocate.ghost.io by Ninja Lover. And I definitely think that plea bargaining is important, and it's about all the Charlottesville march from 2017. I think that was kind of bad, but I do think that was kind of free expression, so I don't know if they should be arresting people for that, but we'll see what happens. And if that plea bargaining is justified, and we'll see. Yeah, I personally wouldn't arrest them for that, for the free expression. I disagree if they're right. Their cause, but they have the right. They had the right to march and protest, even if it was for an incredibly racist and white supremacist cause. So that's my thoughts there. They're coming for the fish by Chi-Town 20 is next, and that's a link to a tweet from Philip Lewis. The British Library deleted a thread about species of fish that can change its sex after hundreds of transphobic responses. Of course, that's just kind of the circle jerk when it comes to LGBTQ these days, I guess. I usually think the for LGBTQ circle jerk is kind of bad, but the anti-LGBTQ circle jerk is kind of bad too. I just wish we could all just keep that to ourselves. Can't we just stop shoving this down our throats 24/7? I think that really is probably why there's so much toxicity around it. Parents in a town in Ireland come together to voluntarily ban smartphones for kids as old as 13 from BusinessInsider.com by Harumph. And I said, interesting. I would personally support this, but you can make a libertarian argument there violating children's autonomy as well. But I personally think, it's social media is not for young kids and they can really fuck them up. And I think you're starting to see that when you look at stuff like, pretty much all the young kids these days, and how depressed they are, and how suicidal they are, and how much disorders they have, like multiple personality disorders, eating disorders, because social media kind of glorifies all the disorders and LGBTQ, and yeah, that's why I think you're seeing them get pushed on them so much, and that's why you're seeing them also crazy these days, it seems. So I definitely think if the parents want to keep it out, I don't know if we should have a law about it. This seems like it might be a law, but I definitely think if the parents don't want to give their kids smartphones, they shouldn't be forced to do so. Michigan Libertarian candidate says lowering the age of consent for sex with teens may be okay in some cases, from freep.com. And it's Tri-Town, and they number one Libertarian candidate, reasonable minds support changing age of consent to allow adults to have sex with children, from Newsweek.com. So, I personally don't think we should be justifying that, but, I do think he has the right to express that, and if they want to do that, and, yeah, I think, it's really just pushing an agenda above all else, I would say. It's apparently just really just designed to push an agenda, these two stories, I would say, especially since they posted them back to back. Iraq is quietly falling apart, from foreignaffairs.com by Harumph. And Chi-Town, they comment quietly, it's falling apart the way every U.S. place the USA is imposing neoliberal capitalist legal governments. I said, yeah. I usually disagree with them. I said, yes, just like Syria, Libya, Syria, Iran, Afghanistan, etc. The U.S. always feels its need to impose its will on all the countries, and that's why I think you're seeing like Iraq fall apart right now because of the U.S. invasion. And Saddam was a disgusting strongman leader, but in a lot of ways he's what Iraq needed because that's how government's done. Is done down there, and the U.S. can't really force its own will on there, just especially when it's for oil, most and for all. That's why they say that's why it's all in the Middle East. They do not anywhere else because they just want the oil. That's all they care about. Florida responsible for flying migrants from Texas to Sacramento, California. AG says from ABCDFW.com by her aunt. And I personally don't think they should be justifying doing that. But if it was voluntary, I think they should should be able to. I would say. This is the more moderate Republican candidate, by the way, from Reddit's image board, and that's from r/Wall Street. It's a tweet from No Lie with Brian Tyler Carlin. Well, Nikki Haley just said teenage girls are contemplating suicide because transgender girls are in their locker room. So, of course, they have an agenda there, but, I definitely do think they should be able to say it. I personally think social media is much more responsible than any of that, but, that's a I think you can make an argument of that as well. I would say, yeah. Ron DeSantis episode of Vice pulled by Showtime. Corporations protecting their puppet candidates. Fascist capitalist corruption on full display by Chi-Town 20 by HollywoodReporter.com. And yeah, I would definitely think that I personally would air the episode anyway, but backlash is a thing, and it's important to always account for that. And I think it's good that Showtime is listening to what the consumers are saying, I would say. Then we have Logical Conclusion by Chi-Town 20, and that is from the Political Humor subreddit. If neo-Nazis are cheering your favorite politicians, you're a neo-Nazi. Deep thoughts with the deep. Of course, if you disagree with the official Nazi narrative at all, you're going to be labeled neo-Nazi, so I wouldn't take that too seriously, I would say. So, with that, I think we're going to wrap up there. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.